Jack Canfield was being interviewed by Larry King, and he told this story. They were talking about a subject that they titled Beyond Positive Thinking. There were actually 4 other guests with Jack Canfield. A gentleman named James Ray, who you might have heard of, a self-help guru, motivational speaker. Another gentleman named Joe Vitale, who has an interesting lineup of credentials behind his name, an ordained minister, an expert in metaphysics, and an expert in hypnotism. There were 2 others. I don't remember their names. They weren't quite as notable. A substance abuse counselor and a university professor. But then there was Jack Canfield on the show as well. You probably have heard of Jack Canfield, one of the co-authors of the Chicken Soup for the Soul best-selling series. It's sold something like 80 million copies, all told. But Jack Canfield also has come into fame in his own right as a motivational speaker and a self-help guru. And so he told this story as they were talking about the law of attraction, which is the idea that if we bring our minds into frequency with whatever it is that we want, we can achieve those things. We can obtain those things. That everything has a frequency, a vibration. And that by simply bringing your mind into harmony with that frequency, you will attract that to you. And so Jack told this story. He said, my mentor was a man named W. Clement Stone, who was worth about $600 million. He taught me this principle. I was a teacher in Chicago making $8,000 a year, and I took a course with him. And he said, I want you to set a goal that's so big that if you achieve it, you'll know it's because of what I'm teaching you. So I set a goal to make $100,000 in 1 year. Now, you know, they don't pay you more to become a good teacher. So I had no idea how I was going to do that, but I visualized it. I had an affirmation. I felt the feelings. I saw myself living in this $100,000 lifestyle. To make a long story short, what happened was I started getting ideas. I would be in the shower, and this inspiration would come. Hey, you have a book. It gets 25 cents royalty every time it gets sold. If you sell 400,000 copies of that book, you'd make 100,000. Now, I didn't know how to do that. My publisher didn't know how to do that, but I started visualizing 400,000 book copies sold. And what changed it was my wife said one day that if we were a bookstore, we would make $3 a book, and then we'd only have to sell 33,000 copies. By the end of the year, we had a mail-order bookstore with 32 different books and tapes, and we made $92,328. And I was still a teacher making $8,000, which gives me what? $100,000 a year. Larry King asked James Ray an interesting question. He said, are we always attracting things to us? And here's what he said. We are. I mean, we're consistently attracting. I mean, every single thing you have in your life right now, you're either in resonance with it, or if it's not in your life, you're not in resonance with it. If you want to create anything you want, anything you desire, you have to practice what I call going 3 for 3, said James Ray. Reading on, here's what he said. Your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions all need to be firing simultaneously and in alignment. When you go 3 for 3, you're absolutely unstoppable. You can create anything you want. Wow. I want to ask you a question this morning. Is there really a direct connection between what we think and what happens in our lives? Let me be more specific. By applying our imagination or certain mental techniques, can we actually change the outcome of things that we might otherwise think were beyond our control? Now, those who answer the question yes do utilize some interesting verses of Scripture, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Proverbs 23, verse 7, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Some turn to Proverbs 17:22. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. An interesting verse, and of course when we consider that in light of what we know from the writings of Mrs. White, who told us that 90% of illness originates in the mind, she wasn't just saying it's all in your head. She was saying, yeah, people are really sick. These are real diseases, but they originate in the mind, in the thinking. And there was the scripture that we used this morning as our scripture reading. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. I want to just sort of try to keep a focus here, because we could maybe dilute it by talking about a lot of different things that the heart means. But clearly, no matter what you want to say, among those things, the heart must be referring to the mind and the thinking. Because of the verse we just quoted a few minutes ago, as a man thinketh in his heart, certainly involves our thoughts. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. So, just how powerful is the human mind? I was delving into that subject this week, looking in Scripture, looking in the spirit of prophecy. I found a quotation I don't remember ever hearing or ever reading, and to the best of my knowledge, it only appears one time. I'm going to read it to you. Some may say, if we believe the Bible, why does not the Lord work miracles for us? He will if we let Him. When a human mind is allowed to come under the control of God, that mind will reveal the miracle-working power of God. The power of the mind in action is like the miracle-working power of God. That's quite a statement, isn't it? Now, I want to suggest to you that the mind is the most important battlefield, that it will prove to be the Normandy for the outcome of the war over your soul. And that, in fact, your entire destiny is going to be decided on the battlefield of your mind, your thoughts. In Mind, Character, and Personality, Volume 2, page 655, it says this: if the thoughts are right, then as a result, the words will be right. The actions will be of that character to bring gladness and comfort and rest to souls. On the contrary, if the thoughts are wrong, then the words and the actions are wrong. Jesus was alluding to this when he said that evil things come from where? They emanate from the heart. He was having that discussion, remember, about what defiles a man, and the Jewish leaders were very concerned about how they washed their hands and not getting any defilement and sinful corruption in through their mouth. And Jesus said, look, what corrupts somebody is what comes out of the heart. Well, I'm pointing there, but really we're talking about the thoughts, right? So, how do we get right thoughts? Actually, before we even address that question, there's a more important question, which is, can we do anything at all about our thoughts? Because there are devoted Christian people who say, no, there's nothing you can do about your thoughts. You're just going to have Jesus fix your thoughts. You can't change your thoughts. Of course, if that is your thinking, I hope you'll hang with me here for a few minutes, but there are some things in inspiration to challenge that idea. Remember in Philippians 4:8, finally, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, pure, lovely, etc. What are we enjoined to do? Think on these things. This implies that you actually have a choice. That actually, whether or not you do think on these things does rest with you. And in fact, in the book Our High Calling on page 112, it says this: no one but yourself can control your thoughts. That's quite a statement, isn't it? No one but yourself can control your thoughts. In the book Education on page 127, it says, it is within the power of everyone to choose the topics that shall occupy the thoughts and shape the character. All right, so apparently there is something we can do about it, but there's one more thing we need to consider before we look at what that is that we must do if we're going to have right thoughts.